G'day folks, I just had a bit of a walk into the bush. Plan for today is get a little fire going, fill up our billy, get some coffee on, and then we're going to try and figure out a way to make the Frost River bag that I walked in with carry better. It was about 5k's to hike in, hurt like hell, just no way to get the weight off the shoulders. You might have seen in one of the walk bys, like I had the hip belt like pretty much under my nips. So we're going to try and make a bit of like a variation on the Royale frame, see if we can't improve the way it sits for the walk back out. Alright. So this is the culprit, the Frost River Isle Royale, the big one. New to me, second-hand, just picked it up. Like, it's not something I ever really looked at too closely, but I saw it second-hand for a pretty good price, so I thought I'd give it a try. I've loaded it up because I might stay here overnight, not 100% sure yet, but I've got all the traditional gear. But what we're going to do for now is we'll get the billy and the millbank bag, head down to a little creek and just fill that up so we can put some coffee on. So we'll get the haversack out and we'll move over to that. Great bit of stringy bark on the side of the trail here, so this will definitely be coming with us. Alright, this is about as lucky as we get for water, so I'm going to throw the millbank bag in just to soak for a minute. And then we'll fill her up and fill up our pot. So the water that we just filtered down in the creek's on the fire now, so we'll wait for that to boil. We might have a bit of a better think about this pack frame, how we're going to build it. Alright, so I've just drawn up a little picture here, so hopefully this makes it a bit clearer. I think the normal Roycroft is just done in a triangle, but what we're going to try and do is get some eucalypt saplings and actually bend it. And the idea there is I kind of want to keep these bits away from my shoulders. I reckon if I'm just coming up in a straight triangle, then this here is just going to push straight into my my back and make it a bit more uncomfortable. So this is what we're going to have a go at. We'll do just some square notches to make some lap joints, which we'll lash with a bit of jute twine. And I think the trick will just be getting the right thickness of sapling so that we can get that bend, but it's still strong enough. Now this here is going to pass through the slot on the pack that's made for the the waist belt. And I think the top here, what we'll probably do is maybe just do like lash a toggle to it, which will then go through the hand holder on the pack. So that's a bit we're gonna have to figure out as we go, but I reckon this is off to a half decent start. We've got a picture, so we're halfway done, right? So you can kind of see this whole mid-level of brush here is all eucalypt saplings, and most of these are going to die off because they won't be able to penetrate up through the canopy, even though in this particular spot it's not overly thick, so there's too much competition here. So we can probably take 3 or 4 of these down without worrying this ecosystem in the slightest, so I think that's what we're going to do. So while we were getting those trees, the pot's boiled, so we'll use some to top up my drink bottle, and the other half will go back on for a bit of coffee. The main time I miss having a dedicated water filter is when you're thirsty and the water you've got's freshly boiled. It's a bit of a bummer. Bit of coffee in a dirty old bag here. Cut up. We've got our 2 cross pieces, and these are our 2 side bits. What I'll do is I'll start basically cutting the square joints and using my little possibles pouch type thing here. I've got some jute twine which I'll then use to wrap the or lash around the joints. And I'll get it all set up and fitted together, but then I'll actually have to assemble it on the pack, just so that piece will be where it needs to be, because I won't be able to stick it through after. So that's the plan. Alright, so we're almost finished. We've got the top 3 joints cut and lashed. The bottom 2 are cut, but we'll wait till it's on the bag to lash them. Things we've learnt is that even though these bend, once I cut the square joints, they just bend there instead, or they sort of fold there now that it's thinned out so much. So I was trying pretty hard to avoid having this triangular shape, and it's pretty much exactly what we've ended up with regardless, but that's alright. We'll throw it on the bag and give it a go. so we'll slot the back piece in behind the waist belt. And we'll get ready to lash that on. So the knots, I've just been doing an arbor knot, or I think it's also called a jam knot. So just I've been doing a figure 8 stop knot in the jute, just because a single stop knot seems to slip out, and then you do an overhand knot, and just making sure that you've got your tail end passing through. So pull that tight, and then you can torque that down, and that'll hold really well. And with my excess cord, I've just been wrapping it like crazy until I run out of string, pretty much. Alright, so the frame is now on the pack, so this is it. Pretty basic sort of thing, but the idea then is that when I'm walking, this would sit like this, and I'll use I was thinking just tying some string here coming up to a toggle, which will then just sit through that little V there, and what that'll do is that'll hold that taut and stop it from sagging and then the weight falling on my shoulders. So that's the plan, and I'll just have to unbuckle those and rebuckle them so they're on the front side of it. Didn't think about that. But so we'll maybe carve up a little toggle, and then I've got some, I'll just use my jute there, and we'll get that fitted. Alright, and instead of trying to bore holes in it, I'll try and drill holes through it with this little knife. I'll just do just notch it the entire way round, and that's where we'll tie our string, and then we'll trim it off with the saw. Just leaving it on the end of your stick while carving, it's just a handy little tip, because it just gives you something to hang on to instead of trying to get in close with your fingers and your knife. A little bit ugly, but we'll certainly do the trick. Right, so while jute is super handy, it's certainly not perfect. It can break pretty easily, so this is a bit that I spent a bit of time the other day reverse twisting, just for things like this where I would need something a little bit stronger. I was just concerned that using just a single bit of jute would, there you go, probably break. So that notch will hold that cord in place, and we'll pretty much do the same thing. We'll just loop that around the end and tie it off on the handle of our bag, and that's how we're gonna fix the top. Right, there we have it. So our toggle there holding the bag taut to the frame. Alright, so I've scattered I tipped out my coffee grounds and a bit of water onto the fire, so that's now completely out. So we'll scatter this, pack the bag, and go for a walk and see if we've actually managed to improve it. Alright, so we're all done with cleaned up. It's time to throw this thing on and see if we've improved it. Doesn't really feel like there's been any change so far, to be honest, but I'll check back in after a couple of Ks. Alright, so we found a pretty pleasant little place to stop and have a recap. The frame, does it work? Yes. Overall it does. I still need to have the waist built up a little higher than what I'd like, but that might also be to do with just being this bag being a bit short for my back. Not too sure, but it is much more comfortable than when I walked in. So by the time I get back to the car, it'll be 9k round trip, half of that without the frame, half of it with it, and I can already tell you after about 2k with it, much better. I mean, obviously this isn't the only solution. I think you can get pack baskets for these, which would be pretty handy. And this particular frame, this exact one, is kind of junky. It was very spur of the moment, field expedient. I think it could definitely benefit from another iteration. But yeah, overall, I mean, I feel like it was a half decent use of my time to just, you know, if you're out walking, there's no point being uncomfortable, especially if you're used to modern suspension systems, which I absolutely am. So I mean, overall, I'm happy. Yeah, it was a good day in the bush. It's been beautiful out. So if you're watching one of my videos for the first time, thank you very much. If you're a family member who watches all my videos, thank you very much. And everyone else, thanks very much. Alright, cheers.